Hello, and today I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for quite some time, and that's the threat of rage bait on social media. I've felt for a long time now that the internet rewards anger over everything else nowadays. It's been the thing that constantly gets the most views, the most reach, the most interactions for yourself. It's basically the way of getting any clout online nowadays. And it's been around for quite some time, but I feel like it's gotten way worse in these coming years. And that's based on a number of factors. The biggest one, of course, being the political climate. But it's also about how us as people have been more distant from each other than in the past, especially from the internet that used to be this place that everyone could come and go, just a variety of different voices. Now has been kind of chipped off to very specific niches, very specific ways of thinking, and there's been no growth in that. There's no way to change, I guess, the status quo from what it's been. And I'm going to be a bit rambly here because, this has been on my mind for quite some time, but it's something I think about. It's something that keeps me up at night, is how to deal with a world that's been more and more hostile to basically everything that goes against the grain. And I was inspired to talk about it again because of two different situations involving people getting death threats from their opinions or calling out bad behavior online. And that's this VTuber Anna and this game journalist, what's her name? Alyssa Mercante. They've been attacked online for spreading the word of the hateful shit people say online, and of course calling that out they become a target because that's how it works. That's how it's been working for a lot of people in order to get people to ignore the problems and kind of shift blame into the people exposing it. And that's been basically the internet's bread and butter for as long as her species been around. Because you had stuff like the satanic panic back in the day, and it's kind of been that over and over again, but with varying different targets. But the internet, I feel has divided people. There's a giant divide between people who think this way or think that way. And before, it used to be we could all come together and sort it out. But nowadays it's felt like there's two groups. It's more like a sports war between two different teams rather than talking as humans or as species. And I could talk about my conspiracy theories about how I think the government purposely does this, or corporations. And I do have some evidence for that, but I don't want to get all kooky on you, so I'm just gonna keep to the basics here. And that's the war between broad in-group and a broad out-group fighting each other, and all internet spats could be basically labeled as such, in-group versus out-group. And due to the way the internet works nowadays, there hasn't been a way to quell that dissent in a reasonable manner. It's always going to be now one group versus another group, and they kind of talk over each other because you're not dealing with forums or discussion boards or whatever. We're talking about attention points. Because the way to get noticed on the internet is being found out. And of course, Hollywood, there isn't all that space for every single person to have their own special place to say what they want. It's basically a war about who gets to talk and who doesn't get to talk. So people start arguing, not to person, but to an audience. They're arguing for an audience to understand rather than discussing it with the other side. And depending on how extreme the disagreements are, the more like violent it feels online, which is like all violent words. But it's kind of been like that because there's been rage bait where people are like irritated or like they are mocking someone, and then there's this other side of the rage bait where it's like, I wish everyone there was dead, which was something that I had to deal with. Or at least I tried to deal with it and it didn't work. Mostly because I didn't know how to, but also because that, the way I think, has been archaic for some time now. Because no one on the internet is here for community anymore. It's more of their own selfish desires or to make their own community. Everyone has an account. Everyone has a social media presence. So everyone starts talking like their opinions matter, like I do. Which, I mean, I am self-reflective about that stuff. So, like, I understand that I do it, and it's kind of like this human thing to do it. But I feel like I'm like one of the only people who self-reflect, which does sound kind of conceited. But when you talk to people who are very upset over something, they're not rational. They don't think because they're like told what to say, what to do, how to act, and it's based off like groupthink, which is a word, of course, where people always have these perceived biases against one another. And I did that too with the way I came about hearing things. Was I predetermined how people thought, and so I basically talked to them like I would talk to anyone who would quote-unquote have those same opinions or ideals, and not taking the time to understand them, which would be more beneficial to like both of us. Of course, if that same reaction was, you know, given to them too, which on the internet is getting harder and harder to do because it's kind of been infested with these propagandist tools, thought terminating ideas that make you ignore what the other person is saying, and then you go on your own kind of tirade, and it starts to feel like everyone's talking over each other rather than talking to each other. And when one group does give like valid criticism, like something that's pretty bad, the other group would go, yeah, well, what about this? You know, what about you doing this? And it just becomes the same repeating pattern where both of you don't get to learn, and you both just kind of fly out, make excuses for the bad behavior, because again, it's like a sports team. So a lot of times it feels like people think like apologizing, conceding a point, or like just saying sorry is a form of weakness. And when people think about that way, it becomes really toxic to try to discuss things, anything really. It doesn't even have to be about politics. In fact, one of the oldest wars on the internet has been the console wars, which is something that infested people's brains way before Gamergate. It's so ridiculous. Even in the 90s, when people talking about like Nintendo versus Sega, in the 2010s it was like Xbox, Sony, Nintendo, and then of course the PC master race. And I remember those times. It was childish, but at least back then it wasn't so cruel and like evil about like minorities or something. It was just about stupid bullshit no one cared about, but now it's like stupid bullshit with like very, very serious societal problems clashing. And of course, it's not just gaming, it's been infested into like movie discussions, and it's been infested in like communities like VTubing, which is what that person was getting harassed for. It was like talking about how this person who believes in literal white supremacist views, but then that becomes like, oh, you're like targeting me, or like you're canceling me. And then instead of like learning why people are upset, it becomes like, well, how do we react? How do we fight back from this existential threat? And nothing changes in either form. Because when you're fighting for clout, attention in an audience, it's this like one-on-one conversations. Like the only way that happens is like debate spaces, which is ridiculous because you don't need to debate every single thing. You can just talk and have better understanding of each other. But with clashing egos, that doesn't happen because it becomes, what narrative can you feed your audience? What do you say to your audience? So when these discussions happen, what can they say? What do they say in order to like defeat that? And the polarity pulls from either side. It's either that side or this side. And there's no way to balance it. And when you spend your time online always othering the other person, it becomes easy to ignore whatever's coming from that side. And you can't have nuanced discussions because the results are already carved out. Like there's no other option. So when you look at any social media for any drama or discussion that's happening, there's already two sides, and it's your choice to pick which one. Certain influencers making videos about the topic en masse, like side by side each other, sort of like this cult of personality, but cult of opinion, where the whole point is just to feed the audience what they want to hear. And when an outsider comes in and like starts questioning things, the audience has already been told to look out for stuff like that. So when you do that, they already think like you're the other, therefore not worthy of discussing towards. Oh, it's that shill, or it's those people, Oh, you're woke. Oh, you're edgy. Oh, you're this or that. So any discussion that could have been done just doesn't happen at all. And when it comes to like these giant battles between one individual versus another, it becomes hateful really fast. Especially when one person's outnumbered and the death threats or like rape threats come systematically, and the other side is supposed to just ignore it and just say, oh, that's just how things go. Or like, what about what he did here, what she did here? And a lot of times it's not equal to each other. But again, it's any excuse whatsoever to ignore what's happening underneath. And humans were not meant to deal with this shit. So when you are an individual dealing with like thousands upon thousands of people coming at your throat, either in different extremes or whatnot, it just becomes overwhelming. And your brain starts to not function at all. It becomes irrational because the situation itself is irrational. Like, why would you say someone deserves to die for making like an article or a video that disagrees with your beliefs? Like, this doesn't happen in real life unless it's religious or unless it's political. And everything has become like this political game, because it's about like othering people and making sure like we don't all come together to say, what the fuck are these corporations and governments doing? It's all about, well, we need to have a scapegoat, and like, oh, those trans people specifically, oh, that's perfect. Or like, oh, those feminists or this, that, whatever. Like, not even that. It's like, who likes peanut butter versus who likes fucking jelly. And I fear that it's become so mainstream and so codified in like social consciousness on social media, on the internet, that it's rewired how we think, and we no longer have this eureka moment of understanding that's able to happen. Because I have arguments online. I guess a lot of you do, hopefully. Or maybe it's just me and I need to stop. But it becomes obvious who's genuine, like who sincerely believes it, or who's just parroting what they're supposed to say and are actually apathetic to it, but was told to say that. And it's becoming really hard to find people who are open to that discussion online, or even hell in real life. This one time in real life, I saw it happen right in front of my eyes, where this discussion happened about movies, and the other person just instantly went on like, well, why do they have to be all political? Why do they have to have these morals or whatnot? And then the other person was talking about, oh, they think like RoboCop is not political. And I just had to stop and look there and I go, what the fuck is going on? Neither of you are talking to each other. And it honestly scared me to see that happen. Like, to acknowledge it happening. And it was just a tiny fraction of what's happening in right now. So just think about the damage is happening to society as we know it when people start spewing that and not talking to each other. It becomes literal NPC dialogue. And it's not even a joke at that point. Like, have you seen people get irrationally angry? Like, angry at something. Which is where these grifters or like rage baiters come along and like profiteer off it. Which I mean, like Facebook, Google, YouTube, you know, they've already been profiting off us. But to have it now individually is like a fucking nightmare that I want to wake up from, because it has happened to me, and I think it has happened to literally everyone at this point. And what's important is to acknowledge it's happening. That's the first step. First step is knowing. Second step is dealing with it. But then I try to do that and it just falls apart, because obviously I'm not socially trained. I'm socially anxious, I'm depressed, I'm awkward, I'm autistic, I don't know how to talk very good. It's just such a hard game to play, even for like quote unquote normal people. Like, people fucking basically internet die over shit like this, or their entire platform is fucking destroyed when you go into shit like this. Which I guess is the reason why I decided to jump in, because I had nothing to lose. I still don't really. But I, of course, still have these anxieties, these fears. And they do, like, control me and how I react to the results. So far, it hasn't been good. It has not been good. But it's something I want to work on. Something I want to, like, erase, basically, from me, to become better at talking to people. And that's basically why I'm making these videos, is to have the ability to talk to people, or like have this ability to open my mind, speak my mind without coming awkward. But, you know, I have a long way to go. I've been out from the world for 8 years now, and even back then I was not prepared for what shit's been happening, especially nowadays. But even then, I was not prepared for the society rules. But this niche, the commentary niche, is so interesting to me, because I've seen it grow from 1 to 2 people to like an entire industry. And the way things handle here is kind of a microcosm of society at large, where any person can get a microphone and become a speaker for this side or that side. And I've been frustrated on how people act on social media, not just like commentary, but as an entire wider ecosystem of humanity. So I decided, well, what if I try it? Like, I am self-deprecating as hell. Like, I hate myself. I'm getting better at it, weirdly enough. I guess that's how reality works when your life isn't full of stress and turmoil. When you're finally able to breathe, you're able to go, I feel like I'm better, not society, not like systematically, not appearance wise, just like thought wise, is I have something to say, and a lot of these people are underutilizing their platform, or they're not perfectly doing stuff, especially when it comes to really serious problems. A lot of people will react badly because who they're talking about, like in the Anna or Alyssa situation, they're not perfect victims, quote unquote. Like, they have their flaws, so that gets exemplified while the other shit doesn't. And it becomes nitpicky, petty bullshit before it becomes like a serious discussion we shouldn't be having. Which is why I kind of like videos like from down the rabbit hole, because it's more nuanced. It takes more of a overall experience, and you learn stuff from it, rather than the whole point is just to make fun of someone. Anyways, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to challenge myself here. Like, if I'm able to make it here, I would be able to make it anywhere. Which might be delusional thinking, especially a place that's cutthroat. But I mean, look at the world. It's been cutthroat, dude. So my conclusion here is basically just to look out for these topics that make you angry, that make you upset, and start to question why that is. Start questioning everything, and maybe one day we'll have like a place where normal thought can flourish, and not this weird social media infested brain rot that's infected just millions at this point. Try to go back to how the internet was. And even then, the internet wasn't that good, but I felt like there was more places where people could talk back then, before all this monetization, clout chasing all came to fruition. Back when it felt like the internet was sincere, I kind of want to try to prioritize that over everything else. And I guess just be nice to people. Like, don't be a dick. Even when it's something very extreme. Like, I'm not saying put yourself in danger or anything, but I'm just telling you that there is a chance to change people's minds. There is this place in people's psyche where they're not always controlled by this rage, by this social programming, where you're able to empathize with people and actually reach out and talk to each other. Because I felt it happening when I was doing my own thing, and I start to understand like where they're coming from, why they think this way, and I just kind of want to just help people go through that, or maybe even find people who help me through that shit. Moral of the story: everyone needs somebody, so try to be reasonable to people on both ends. Alright, that's it. That's my rant, my commentary, whatever the stupid shit is. Bye-bye.